Right, what we'll do, because we've only got an hour, we will get started. So good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. It is great to see so many faces popping along. My name is Rachel. I am Head of Youth Networks at Global Action Plan, and I oversee the UK Schools Sustainability Network, which is a national network of students and teachers taking climate and sustainability action, which I'm sure most of you at the moment probably know who UKSSN is. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. A quick reminder, this session will be recorded, so if you don't want to be on the screen, please leave your camera off. And whilst other people are speaking, if you could just leave your microphones muted so that we don't get any blur in the background and things. So we've put this session together this evening to explore how to embed climate change and sustainability education within and across schools. We want to focus on approaches that are holistic, meaningful, action-orientated, and grounded in diverse perspectives that can empower young people and educators to make change and take action. With us tonight, sharing perspectives on education leadership and an innovative educational approach in Northumberland, we have Meryl and David. So would you like to introduce yourselves? David, would you like to?
Yeah. Right. Sorry, I'm leaping in, Meryl. Did you want to go first? No. Yeah, I'm David Dixon. I was a head teacher, man and boy, for about 20 years, and came out of headship after being in charge of 3 primary schools, and I'm promoting leadership for sustainability across the country and trying to get more leaders on board with that, because I've always thought that that's the key to embedding sustainability. If the senior leadership in particular haven't got buy-in, then a lot of teachers and other enthusiasts are struggling. So that is my mission, really, to try and get more leaders for sustainability.
And I'm Meryl Batchelder. I'm a teacher in the Northeast in Northumbria, and I am also quite recently joined the team on Ministry of Eco-Education as a national coordinator to try and promote environmental education across the board. So I've had a full day in teaching. You can hear it in my voice. Still loving being by the chalkboard for now, but yeah, it's trying to balance both is always a challenge.
Thank you both. Yes, much respect for you, Meryl, for joining us after a full day of teaching. Yeah, your voice does sound a bit croaky, but we can understand that. So we're going to get things started, and just to say that we will do question and answers and have a discussion at the very end of both Meryl's and David's conversation. So we won't have a break in between, because we'd like to just have a big group discussion and question and answer at the very end. So we've got plenty of time for that. So we're going to kick off with David, who is going to lead the discussion about developing a whole school approach to sustainability leadership. So David, would you like to share your screen and take it away?
Okay, can you all see that and hear it?
Yeah, all good, David. Thank you.
Okay, Rachel?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, all right. Okay, here we go then. Disconcertingly, it's saying my internet connection is unstable, but hopefully it'll stand up. Okay, so I'm going to briefly share with you some of the things I've been trying to promote with leaders in schools for the last few years since leaving headship myself. And it's because I believe that leaders are the gatekeepers that we need to really convince to take on more sustainability, and to have sustainability as a golden thread that runs throughout the school in more ways than one. So I'm just going to share some of the ideas behind that, and also, if we've got time, a bit about a leadership toolkit, which I'm also piloting in the near future. So I think one of the problems with sustainability, it really is about life, the universe and everything. And leaders get quite, I think, psyched out by this. And as a result of that, I think, despite everything, they're putting it on the back burner, or it's a bolt-on. And so what I'm saying is that, yes, it is about the life, universe and everything, but don't be fazed by that. Actually embrace it, which is easier said than done. But I'm hoping that what I explain will show how to do it. Yeah, we're here. So basically, what I'm trying to do is to show leaders how they can embed sustainability and do it manageably, but also with enough speed, because we can't hang about now. An incremental approach, I'm afraid, isn't on, because we've got climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, other crises, and we need to act. So it's all about getting on with it, really. And when I'm talking to leaders, then I try to explain sustainability with these two simple models that some of you are probably very aware of, just to show that it's not all about the green stuff. And I think a lot of people do sort of hone in on this and think, oh yes, it's just climate change, or it's about sowing some wildflower seed in my school grounds. And if I do that, then I'm home dry. Well, really, I think we need to look at sustainability as a bigger picture than this. If it is like the universe and everything, then it has social, environmental, and economic aspects to it. And we need to really cover all those bases to get the sweet spot of sustainability. That's why I like the diagram on the left, really, because it has this sustainability sweet spot if you get all the other three aspects sustainable. So if we quickly look at each of these three main aspects, social sustainability, I think a lot of it we can see now happening, war, pandemics, poverty, injustice, and an inappropriate education system. And I think we've got that, really. We've got an education system, unfortunately, which is more business as usual orientated still than it is in terms of sustainability. And then we've got environmental sustainability itself, the green stuff, if you like, which is the biggest actual problem, but we're still delaying solving it fast enough. And the reason, largely, I think, in societal terms, is because the economic sustainability and is really not there at all yet. And we're still talking about economic growth. And if you look at all the main parties, it's all about economic growth so that we can solve all the other problems. And I think that is the main problem. So we need to try and think of ways to overcome that sort of perception. So when I'm doing some workshops on sustainability, these sorts of words crop up, and I try and get people to explore what we actually mean by it, because I think a lot of it is down to the length of time we're talking about. Because we talk about looking after the earth for our children and grandchildren. Well, that's small beer, really. We need to be having the groundwork put in so that it's a lot further into the future that we can say that we're going to be a sustainable society. So I think some of these words are they all have connotations of time. I particularly like time immemorial, because that was coined in the 1300s apparently, and it meant any time before the Battle of Hastings. So that's a bit of pub quiz thrown in for your entertainment. I think continuing over time is the best one, really, and I think we need to try and define what that might be. And of course, if you look at the 4.54 billion years of the Earth's existence as a 24-hour clock, then we're Johnny-come-latelys as a species. So humans arrived at 11:58:43 seconds. And if you look at modern humans, industrial humans, much later than that. So for a millisecond on the history of the Earth's face, we're causing havoc, really, as we know, with the planet. And I think this is why we need to look further forward and be more ambitious about what we mean by sustainability, so that it really is embedded for the distant future, the far distant future. And there are many aspects of leadership, and we come across all of these. I think I've been all of these in my time. I've been a dictator sometimes, ego-driven sometimes. But what I'm trying to say to leaders is we need more of the types of leadership that we see in the green stars here. Guardian, shepherd, steward, servant. Some of these have disappeared from education leadership in recent years, and I think we need to try and rediscover them, because they are the key to running schools along sustainable lines. And although some of them might look touchy-feely, we need more of it, I think. And I think one of the problems we've got is that we've got too much technocratic leadership in schools. It's an industrial model. And if you look at the sort of language that's used in schools, then you can see this in spades. So targets, impact, timelines, total quality management, human resources. intervention, value added, you name it. All these are industrial terms. Whereas I think we need more ecological language, kindness, collegiality, celebration, empowerment. And once again, these are touchy-feely, but I think these are the keys to successful leadership for sustainability. And if you've got too much technocratic stuff going on, then you're not going to have a sustainable school. You're going to have unhappy staff, unhappy pupils, and it just ain't going to work. So one of the models I've developed to try and show leaders what sort of leadership may be good to develop is in terms of these 6 Ps, which we haven't got time to look at now, but I can share all these slides with you at a future date if you wish. But certainly it has to be enabling. Leaders for sustainability need to be primers. They do need to be progressive. They need to have ecological thinking, holistic approaches. And they do need to provoke as well. They need to challenge and think, come on, we need to do more of this. We need to have everyone singing from the same song sheet, but we need people there to drive it. Bit of an industrial term, drive, but I think in these terms we need it. Because I believe that we've got too many leaders in schools that are boiled frogs. In other words, they've been conditioned by the system. And so they accept the system, and we need to think of ways in which we can not exactly, well, perhaps subvert it might be a too strong a word, but we need to work within it so that we are actually making schools properly sustainable and we're doing justice to the pupils and the students in our care. And I think also leaders need to break out of shifting baseline syndrome. So you've got young staff coming through schools who haven't known any other than sort of technocratic measures, and we need to show them another way, another paradigm, if you like, as they would say in academia. So there's definitely shifting baseline syndrome out there. And really, if you look at it, it's some of the things which we believe at the moment with economic growth and other things within the education system, in some ways, no better than believing that the earth is flat. And there are many people, especially in America, who do believe that it's flat. Perhaps it is, perhaps I've got it wrong. And so I think we have got perverted paradigms, and this is a classic example of it. Scott Morrison, Australia's treasurer at the time, when Australia was hitting 50 degrees C in the shade, he was saying, "This is cold, don't be afraid, don't be scared." Well, we should be scared, but we've got these sort of climate change deniers who look bonkers now, don't they? And the same in America. And this was snowballs rather than coal, and so this was during a particularly cold snap in America that proved, in his terms, that climate change didn't exist. And of course, we've got our friend Mr. Putin as well, who is welcoming climate change because it means that he can get his ships through the Arctic more easily. Yes, scary stuff. So what we need to do in schools, I think, is to develop a donut economy. And if you haven't come across this concept, it's worth reading up on it, really. Because if we can get it right, if we can live within our ecological means, and schools can be sort of a microcosm of this, then this is sustainability in action in the social, economic, and environmental terms. So if a school can be a circular economy in microcosm, then you've got it about right. And I can go on at length about that, but I won't. So the problem we've got is, of course, we're speeding up the process of using the Earth's resources. So from picks and shovels, we've now got industrial machines that are mining the earth for its resources, and this continues to accelerate. And so we've got to stop using so much stuff, and schools can be pioneers with this sort of stuff. Another way of looking at it is, in the UK, we're using 2.5 planets worth of resources, and of course that is not sustainable. We need to break loose from the take, make, use, dump linear economy. And as I was saying, schools can be part of showing how to do that. And we need to go beyond the recycling economy. Like I was saying, the circular economy, where we're regenerating as much as we're sort of taking and using and recycling. So the recycling economy still isn't good enough, really. Worldwide, only 6% of resources are recycled. So that's rubbish anyway. So we need to have the actions and the curriculum designed to assist the circular economy become more of a reality. And of course, we need to do something about being divorced from nature. So school grounds spring to mind, but also field trips, getting in, forest schools, this sort of thing into schools. We need more of it. We need to bring plants into the classroom. I go into schools and they're bereft of plants, so the brain doesn't like that. So we need to think in a different way. And this is what I'm sort of more and more being more forthright with leaders, really. It means, wake up and smell the coffee. And there's lots of things we can do in school. And Meryl will tell you lots of things in a practical way that you can do to change the paradigm, because it's not working at the moment. We're still business as usual orientated in education. We need to be more radical. So I've developed a toolkit that works from a vision that is developed by all school stakeholders, so that sustainability is embedded and is this golden thread that runs throughout the school. And it's worthwhile spending time on this. So it's not just a rubber stamp, and it's not just the people at the top who are doing it. It is a co-created vision. And some schools are making it the school vision rather than the sustainability vision. I don't think there should be two, really. I think you should have one vision, and it should be sustainability orientated. So my toolkit has 10 doorways centered upon that emanate from the vision. And through these doorways, you can then start to build a curriculum and run a school campus and have relationships with the community that really help the cause of sustainability and the circular economy. We haven't got time to go into all the ins and outs of that now, but if you want more details of it, please contact me, and I'm more than happy to give you more details, or actually run it in your school. Let me come in and show you what it's all about. It's based on my book called Leadership for Sustainability, Saving the Planet One School at a Time. And I really do believe that you can, because the butterfly effect, I think, is a powerful effect. Small actions can spread in a viral way, particularly through social media. What you do in your classroom can spread to your school, can spread to your community, can spread worldwide. And I think this is what we need to be ambitious and go for it. So I'm saying to school leaders, don't be a barrier, be an enabler. And it can link to school improvement as Ofsted understands it. And you see all singing, all dancing, sustainability schools who are also Ofsted outstanding. That's not all the be all and end all, as we know. Ofsted is a rather horrible process, but you can tick all the boxes and you can help to save the planet at the same time. It's not either or. It's not some sort of lunatic fringe activity. It should be embedded so that we're producing, well, helping students to, and ourselves actually, to cope with all the changes which are coming, and that we can actually live better lives and better quality lives and have better well-being through sustainability. It's not all sackcloth and ashes and haired shirts. And I'd just like to leave you with this quote from Satish Kumar. And he says that leadership isn't about heroic and headline grabbing actions. And you can read the rest for yourself. And I think we can all be leaders because we need it. And the top senior leadership can promote this and promote leadership at all levels, so that as I was saying earlier, it's a co-created project. So I'll leave you with that quote to end things on. If you want any practical help with the types of leadership, I'm also a trustee of the National Association for Environmental Education, and they brought out a manifesto in 2022, and that documents the type of leadership you can see from pupils and parents and teachers and head teachers. And it's a really good document and aid memoir for developing leadership within a school. So I'll just give the NAEE a plug at this point. So it's been a bit of a mad dash, but hopefully it'll give you some inklings to what I do and why I do it. And hopefully we can have more leaders for sustainability to take things forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. That was really interesting. And I think it's really great to kick things off with a talk over leadership and where we're looking and where it is that our vision needs to be. And it reminds me of a time that I was working with students on a project. And I had to walk in on the morning and say, just bear with me a second, because this isn't something we normally talk about. But today we're going to be talking about nuclear waste messaging. and they kind of looked at me a bit weirdly and thought, why is she talking about nuclear waste messaging? But it was an activity to get them thinking about long-term thinking, what the world could look like further down the line, and what society will look like, what language will we be using, all of these different sorts of things, because there's a task force that has been put together to deal with how we communicate about the nuclear waste that we have been buried. And they're trying to think of creative ways that we can communicate the fact that there is buried nuclear waste without knowing what society looks like in that future, thousands of years down the line. So I said to the students, right, how would you do it? Think about how would you communicate to different societies further down the line? You don't know what they'll look like. You don't know what the challenges will be, but let's just brainstorm something. So they had, you know, some really amazing ideas, really creative ideas. And actually the task force have some pretty crazy ideas as well. Something to do with cats turning blue as well, I think, and things like that. So it's pretty crazy. But
it's ironic, isn't it? It's ironic that the nuclear industry are the most forward-thinking people on the planet at the moment.
Yeah,
it's very ironic.
In a way, yeah, they have to be in that sense. But one student turned around to me and she said, yeah, this is all great, Rach, that we can come up with you know, these crazy weird ideas about how to communicate to people, but why don't we just keep talking to each other and keep learning from each other? Because we're going to keep on passing that information down. You know, there shouldn't be a break in humanity if we keep on going. So why aren't we just talking and learning from each other, adapting the stories, and just keeping that thread going and keeping that long-term vision of what we're trying to achieve going, and most importantly, learning from each other. And I thought that was a really important takeaway, is that it doesn't always have to be this kind of crazy idea, but it's just, why aren't we just continually learning from each other? And it was great that she reached to that point in something that could have made absolutely no sense to them, but it's our long-term vision and learning from each other.
That's really higher order thinking, isn't it? That's incredible from someone so young.
Yeah, and I think it's encouraging them to have these, you know, anyone to have these perspectives about what sustainable leadership is and what the long-term vision is that we need to have. So yeah, just a little snippet there that I thought I would share about some students.
Nice, it's very relevant. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, David. And we'll take questions for David and have a discussion at the end. Meryl, would you like to take over now?
Okay, I will. I'll just share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, got it. Thanks, Meryl.
Superb. Thank you so much for the invitation. How exciting. So I'm going to talk about what I've specifically done, because I had a real issue along the lines of David. I was just finding I was coming up against brick walls, and I'd changed my own classroom practice, and it has absolutely changed what's gone in my school, but it's a slow process. And I keep looking for leadership from the powers that be, and it's quite often lacking. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to slightly take things into my own hands. So I am a teacher in Northumberland. I work part-time. And since all this started, I have since become a national coordinator for the Ministry of Eco-Education. And I think part of the reason that team, the amazing team that work with me, Ministry of Eco-Education, wanted me, is because I've got this kind of let's just do it approach. And so this is me, my little story about let's just doing it. Let's just do it. So I'm looking around in the UK, and we know that we're going to get the global heating is going to cause more frequent storms, flooding, sea level rise, drought and wildfire. But it's not happening all over. It's happening in different ways in different regions. So those four, there's a map of the UK, and that shows that in July 2022, which was the really hot summer, you know, we had 20% of average rainfall down south, and in some areas, you know, 175% of rainfall. So weather patterns are changing more than just the day-to-day. And I think, you know, a lot of communities are really starting to notice this, whether it's because they're getting more flooding or whether it's because they're getting more droughts and water scarcity. You know, down in the southeast has got huge problems with water scarcity, whereas up in Cumbria have got huge problems with flooding. The wash in around Cambridgeshire, again, you know, huge. That's the potential flood map for 2050. You know, so regionally, you know, but in Northumberland, that the flooding's not really going to happen to us in where David and I live, because we're quite close to each other. We've got, but we do have problems with biodiversity intactness. Everybody thinks Northumberland is a, oh, sorry, that's me going too far. Everybody thinks Northumberland is a green and pleasant land, but actually, you know, except for a little area around Kielder, you know, it's a biodiversity wasteland like much of the rest of the UK. So, you know, although it looks like, you know, it's beautiful and green, it's not necessarily the full picture. And then in some areas like the City of London, you get huge problems with air pollution. So it's not just about climate, it's not just about weather, it's about biodiversity, it's about air pollution, it's about living sustainably. So to make sure that pupils and students understand, you know, that this is a real local issue, you know, as well as being a regional one, as well as being a world issue. You can talk in school about flooding in Bangladesh, but that doesn't make it real to the kids in a classroom in Northumberland. You can talk about, you know, huge droughts in the central, in sub-Saharan Africa. Again, it doesn't really make it relevant. But you can talk, you know, so it's about making it very much regionally relevant, like any teaching. Any good teacher would make it a regional, you know, add regional stories. But also beyond that, not just the causes and the consequences of what's happening, what's going on, what's the positive stories, what can we do, what are local government doing, businesses doing, and communities doing to make a difference, and how can we make a difference in our schools, and what action can we take to make that better? So there's me, little old me, near Hexham. And I was doing my bit. I, you know, linked everything to the SDGs several years ago. You know, I've done courses online to try and improve my own knowledge. Talked a lot. I'm probably one of the most outspoken teachers for climate. I'm not at all the best. I'm just one of the most outspoken because I don't, you know, we haven't got time to mess around. So it's just like let's do it. So I was pushing from the chalk face. And, you know, I'm really quite proud of how far I've come, you know, writing in the Guardian and things. But in 2022, my school was the only school in Northumberland registered with the UK SSN, which, you know, there's not huge numbers of schools up here, but there's, you know, 100 or so. And so I just thought, actually, you know, there's no point in me talking to myself because that's literally what I was doing. I decided to go and try and get some help. So what did I do? Well, I thought about what we needed. We needed a set of regionally relevant resources on what the local authority is doing, the positive news stories that would link to my teaching resources. I wanted support to disseminate this to lots of schools. I wanted somebody else to host the local UK SSN because the safeguarding issues, you know, it was restrictive. I don't have enough hours in the day to do that as well. Much better than, you know, hats off to the people who do it because I know the safeguarding things, the running the sessions, hosting local events is an issue. So I thought that was the role of central government, of local government. So that's what I decided in my little old head. What we didn't need is new generic materials. There's loads out there. There's too much out there in some ways. You know, we wanted something that was usable for schools and that was already existing. We definitely didn't want teachers to have more work. I didn't want teachers to end up more confused with mixed messages. And I didn't want to have lots of different points of contact. So that's where I came to. I came to the fact that actually the central point for all Northumberland schools, and I know there's maths and there's, you know, there's not many free schools up here, but there's, you know, but a lot of schools are still local authority maintained. So I contacted them. The way I did it was rather cunning. I decided that going through the education section was not the answer. If you go to the education section of local authority, they're too busy. They've got so many other issues pulling them. But most local governments have a climate group or a net zero group. And they are amenable to talking because they know that they have to raise awareness. And one of the best ways to raise awareness with the whole community in a local region is through schools, because kids go home and talk. Kids can have community action. Kids can do all sorts of amazing things. So I logged in. It was like a bit like this. It was a webinar. And I just registered to be part of the Net Zero Climate Team webinar for Northumberland County Council. There's about 5 people and a dog on the call. And so they were talking about what they're doing, and we've got huge tree planting schemes up here, the Great Northumberland Forest. And it was amazing, and I you know, commended them on what they were doing. And I said, but nobody knows about this. I said, and so what are you doing in schools? How are you raising awareness? And they went, ooh, not really sure. Haven't really started that yet. And I was like, well, you know, what we need is, I told them the list of the things we needed. We needed some regionally relevant resources, but we didn't need any more generic material. So I just, you know, gave them a bit of a spiel. and left them to, and I put them in contact with the Ministry of Eco-Education, because I think that some of their resources, some of their curriculum is fantastic. It's the big ideas. So, and they link out to different resources that exist already. And I said the UK SSN. So I linked them out to these different organisations and pretty much left them to it, thinking like every other time that not much would happen. Oh, how wrong was I? The team, it was Hazel Skur, bless her cotton socks, had an intern over the summer holidays, and she just set them to task and said, right, they had a chat with Ministry of Eco-Education, they had a chat with UKSSN, they said, right, let's make them a resource. And there's a whole little video, if you search Northumberland Climate Change Sustainability resource pack, you can see a whole video of me going through the whole lot. It's amazing. It's too big, in fact, because it's too amazing, because there's so much information in it, it becomes slightly less useful to teachers who just want to dip in and dip out. But so it starts with an introduction and then divides it into what's going on in Northumberland. I'm just going to show you another page, which is a bit more detail. So here's the water in Northumberland. We've got key terms, got learning about this topic, links out to the Ministry of Eco-Education. We've got what goes on in Northumberland, what is happening that's a good news story that's trying to make the difference. And so there's 8 different sections: energy, nature on land, nature in marine, water, waste, food, transport, and society. And they link out to the Ministry of Eco-Education. So it wasn't reinventing the wheel, it was providing new resources that are useful and potential trips out and outreach, all sorts of things that were locally relevant about what's going on here. And as I said, it's almost too long. It's about 40 pages long, and it's amazingly well referenced. But that's not necessarily, I wouldn't say expect all other local authorities to do that, because they just don't have the time, they don't have the staff, and to be honest, teachers might not have enough time to look through it all either. So what Ministry of Eco-Education done, based on the experience of Northumberland, is that they're just now doing short bridging documents to say, okay, what are the big questions in Ministry of Eco-Education curriculum, and where are the Northeast examples? What can we do? What's going on with waste? Kids can go out to things like waste treatment plants and things. There's all sorts of opportunities, but teachers don't necessarily know about them. So it's making life easier for teachers, who are aware that, we've got climate and sustainability strategy that is coming in. We need to start refining our curriculums around it. I know it's not mandatory yet, so let's hope it does get there eventually. We're trying to catch up in the 4 zone. David's absolutely right. This is we've been waiting for leadership, waiting for things to happen. We're talking about schools as industry. Everything we seem to be doing has, the bits that bring me joy are organisations such as UKSSN. It makes life, it has meaning compared to some of the things that we get through central government. So, and that's not all Northumberland have done. Northumberland have, they're now hosting the Northumberland Sustainable Schools Sustainability Network. They're hosting competitions around, for reducing waste. They financially help us support the Young Green Britain Challenge in the Northeast. We're starting to have a regional Northeast finals and things for that, and they're going to give us the council chambers, but they're actually providing financial support as well. And they're just starting to host youth voice events, and that's driving they're listening to youth voice, and it's driving their policy documents in the future. And that comes right down from what the UN have said is, the rights of the child is to have environmental education, and that policymakers should listen to the youth voice. So this, once you start that communication, all of this has been precipitated from me going, what are you doing in education? And suddenly, there's a whole loads. It's like a wave of things that are happening cross county. We haven't got hundreds of schools yet, but we're getting there. More schools are in the Northumberland School Sustainability Network, than there were when I first started it. That's for certain. So we do still have some challenges. There's changing staff in school. A lot of Let's Go Zero. People get tempted away to these new jobs, and they're sort of sustainability leads, acting as leads, and we do have changing staff quite often in schools. We have changing staff in Northumberland County Council. Hazel, who led this from the start, has left. She's gone to work for industry, so we're going to have a loss of consistency. But I've got my first meeting with her replacement tomorrow. There is still limited funding. Even local authorities do not have cash to give away to schools, particularly to make differences in, really, the substantial investment that is needed. There's still poor take-up due to time constraints of teachers, lack of SLT support, lack of climate awareness. As I say, it's changing. It's slow. It's like, trying to, what was the elephant? David was talking about taking bites out of the elephant. I mean, you can see it taken a long time to drive this change. And we still got, much as we've got a sustainability strategy from DFE, it feels like it's coming far too late, and still it's not, there's no mandate to do anything particularly. I teach Key Stage 3 science, and I'm still looking at it. I had to teach about the pinhole camera today, and there's more about the pinhole camera than there is about sustainability. Absolute crazy. But you never know, changing curriculum, or at least encouragement for changing the curriculum, hopefully will come. So we celebrate our success is a huge part of this. Any initiative that is successful should be celebrated. The Northumberland County Council's climate sustainability resource pack has recently been part of the Public Sector Executive magazine. It was on the front cover, and it was in the local press. Just celebrating the fact that change is happening, and those, it's a positive news story. And most local authorities, so my key takeaway for other people is, obviously I'm me and I'm really outspoken, but actually most local authorities now have a climate or net zero team. Part of their remit is to raise awareness, so they can be much, much more receptive to ideas for climate education, and potentially, supporting wider outreach in terms of community action with schools and things than the education division might be. And thank you for listening. What fun. There we go. I've stopped sharing, I believe.
Thank you so much, Meryl. It's so fantastic to hear about the hard work that you are doing in Northumberland, and I think the resource pack is incredible, and it should just be something that's rolled out across every area. I have a question. How do you think students and teachers responded to the resource pack? Have you seen kind of people engaging?
I've done it with my kids. I've used it with my kids, and so what I did with my year 8s, my pupils, what I did with my year 8s is I divided the classes up into 8, because there was 8 parts of the resource pack. I gave them the resources for that particular area, and they became mantle of expert. They became experts in nature, marine, what's happening in marine areas, what's happening to the waste, and they identified what the problems were, what was going on, and what we could do locally. And so they just did, and then they did presentations back to the class, and that's actually precipitated. We do better recycling now than we used to. So and it's all about why net zero, because the net zero isn't part of the curriculum. There's no mention of it, but they will hear it. So yeah, I think it's about making it tangible for the pupils in the classroom. I haven't heard of. I know that it's been downloaded lots and more times than there are schools, I think, in Northumberland. So lots of people are looking at it. I don't know of any other schools who've used it per se, but I've not gone out and looked for that. And as I say, because we've had a change in staff, that might just have to wait. But definitely the things like the Youth Voice for Climate events were very well attended. So yeah, well, I think it's definitely making it, and it's because of that publicity. It's because if you don't know what's going on, then nobody's going to take you up on it. But if you know things are available, then it makes a difference.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. I mean, I think it's even a good start just to think that it's being downloaded.
Yeah.
That is what David was saying earlier. That's a nudge and a kickstart towards something bigger. It might not be kind of the big grand thing that we want, but if it's driving something small forwards, then that's something useful as well. So it's even just good to see that, which is fantastic. There are a few people in the chat asking if you have a link to the resource pack. Are you able to just...
I'll dig it out now. If you want to ask David a question, I'll just get it and then I can put it. But you have to register now, because they were trying to track how many people were using it. You actually have to register now, but they'll allow you to use it. You just have to effectively put your name and address, your email address in. But I'll find it now for you and put it in the chat.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mel. What we'll do now, we've got a few minutes left. We've got about 15 minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to pop your hand up, shout out loud, or post it in the chat for either Meryl or David, and then we can start a discussion going. So happy for people to ask questions however they would like. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? Yes, Rich.
Thanks, Rachel. Question for David. David, how are the leadership organisations like ASCL and others, how are they embracing your work? Is it being looked at as being core business from a leadership perspective?
Just while David unmutes himself, I'll just say, actually, ASCL, we're me and Paul Edmund and Rachel are running a workshop with Julia at the ASCL conference in Liverpool on the 8th of March on climate sustainability education. And with this will be part of the discussion, the school approach, regional approach, wider national approach, which we're really looking forward to.
Yeah, sorry, Rich. I've had positive reactions from the NEU. I've tried the NEHT on a number of occasions, and they did try and run some workshops, online workshops that I put together at great length, but then they had negligible take-up, so they didn't run them. So, and I go to conferences, and usually the people who come to me are in single figures, whereas the heads and the executive heads will queue up at things like how to adapt deviant boys' behavior sessions. So unfortunately, there isn't as much leadership take-up as I would like, and I think a lot of them are still, well, I think they are boiled frogs, to be honest. I'm increasingly coming to that conclusion. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Dynamic or I've got all the answers, but there isn't the curiosity that I would like to think would be out there for senior leaders. But I am getting some headway with some of the academy chains. So I'm thinking that that's probably the best way forward for me, at least. But even so, it's painfully slow. It's glacially slow in terms of how they just don't get the leadership thing in terms of sustainability. And a lot of it is still fixated on climate change, when as we know, that is a symptom of the underlying unsustainability that we've got to really confront. And also well-being is another thing which is talked about in schools, but there's no links to sustainability, which I think is a no-brainer, really, when you think about the value of nature just on its own in terms of that subject. So I'm a little bit depressed about it, but I keep plugging away, basically.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I would hope that the DFE strategy will start to have an influence as it rolls out further, because if you think we've had a over 10-year hiatus where there wasn't a strategy in place at all from the department. So I guess in some ways you could say it's not surprising that leaders have been looking in other places to decide what they think is important. But although the new strategy is not perfect, but I'm at least hopeful that it's raising the bar, isn't it, and starting to drive progress, it's simply with things like stating they have to have climate action plans and so on and so on, so it's at least starting to drive progress, even if, as you say, it's not as quick as perhaps any of us would like.
I think it's still a case of, because it's not statutory, then schools are still putting it on the back burner, or they're seeing it as a bolt-on rather than embedding it. And I think if, say, Ofsted was suddenly inspecting sustainability in the way I described, then I think everyone would sit up and take notice big time, because it would then be linked to performance-related pay and all sorts of other mechanistic systems. But because it isn't, then it's still, not exactly take it or leave it, but there's more wriggle room, if you like, and other things can get in the way. So I think that's the challenge that we've got going forward. But that's why I'm increasingly coming away from the green argument and saying this is school improvement and it's child protection, and this is why it shouldn't really have a green label, and we shouldn't be just fixated on climate change all the time. So that's a different message, and I think that is having a better effect, actually, rather than it's being seen as something for the bearded men with open-toed sandals, of which I'm not, as you can see. I'm not showing my feet anyway.
As a bearded man, I'll take no offence to that, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Bit beardish, wasn't it?
Thank you both. That was really interesting, and it reminds me of I think it was a conversation that was happening in the WhatsApp chat. Meryl, you might be able to remember. Somebody was asking whether or not a climate action plan should be its own separate thing or be implemented alongside the strategy.
Yeah, it was me, because
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I like to think I know kind of what's going on, my finger on the pulse in terms of environmental education, climate and sustainability education in the UK. And I'm not a sustainability lead. My school hasn't decided to, you know, but I'm doing all the parts of it almost, at least in terms of curriculum, in school anyway, because I think it's important. But no, you know, so we've got an, you know, school. The kids have got their own eco committee plan for what they want to do this year. The head teacher, bless her cotton socks, best rule in the world, has produced a school action plan. It does have sustainability, it's the last thing, and it's effectively a stream of consciousness, ideas that she thought might be useful. Plastic-free school. It's like, there's no timeline on it. It's not deliverable, you know, unless actually people take action on it. It's just like a wish list of things. So, you know, so I've got the Department of Action Plan. It's got some sustainability in there, but it's not fit for purpose. So if I was to develop, I was talking to Lizzie Rushton about this before, if I was to develop a climate and sustainability action plan, you know, what should it do? And Lizzie said, oh, well, it should go all the way through the school action plan. And you could highlight them in bold, in green, to say these are the parts that are, you know, this is where sustainability could fit in. And then I've got other people saying, no, it needs to be a separate document. So now I'm still none the wiser. But it's nice talking to people. It gives you a bit of a, you know, it's none of us are experts in what, you know, how to educate in a climate crisis. You know, I think that's key. We are literally trying to find our way. It would have been nice to have central government lead the way for us. It's not happened. So we've got all our ideas, and they are putting people together. They're talking to SOS, they're talking to UKSSN, they're talking to lots of people now. But there's still so many bits piecemeal, and so therefore, if you're a teacher just coming in, just waking up to the fact that there are real issues ahead, where do you go? Where's the message? It's so confusing to them. You know, if it's confusing me, then it's definitely confusing them. So, you know, that things like the UKSSN WhatsApp, you know, it's just nice to know that other people are looking for similar things or sharing similar things, and that there's lots of like-minded people out there, because when you're at the chalk face, sometimes it can feel very, very lonely.
Yeah, completely.
You are actually going to pilot my toolkit in your school, aren't you?
We
Meryl?
are. We're so excited. So the nice thing
I'm excited as well. Yes.
My head teacher is quite open to ideas. So David's coming in and doing a half a day of CPD with us on the toolkit, and we'll see how it's accepted and how it can be used. So hopefully that will then the climate action plan will be formed around it, which is what I'm actually hoping. But I think it will eventually be a separate document, but it just then ends up just being another document that people can ignore. So the climate action plan is only any use at all if people take action.
Thank you. I've just noticed, Rob, do you mind, just, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you'd like to, would you like to share how the development of your climate action plan has been? I've just noticed that you're launching it next week, and how have you found it within your school?
Yeah, sorry. So can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
So I'm kind of trust sustainability lead across the map. So it's kind of a voluntary position, above and beyond what I kind of do. But it's actually really got the support of the kind of COO and CEO, which is brilliant. So we had last year was kind of feeling our way with things. With a kind of strategy, getting all schools with an eco lead, an eco community, and an SLT link. And then in June and July, we decided we need to now look to be far more strategic. And so we looked to get our climate action plan, and we've done it very holistically. So very much including the kind of operations teams, the IT, the food, all aspects of that, and now linking to the curriculum as well. So I'm going to launch it with a big meeting with all of our eco leads on Monday. And the idea will be that we will have our trust objectives, which have been thought through very carefully with everybody in the room that can hopefully make those things happen. And the idea is the eco leads and the eco committees will draw up their own kind of mini school action plans within that as well. So it's far from perfect, but it's moving forward. It's got traction. I was able to take it to our exec team, so it's got the full backing, and I think that's absolutely key. So just looking forward to kind of seeing how it develops from there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's so interesting and useful for people to hear from the various different ways that people are implementing their climate action plan and how it goes, because it's so different for every school, how to go about it. And just really interesting, I think, that a lot of the time that it is coming from someone who is doing it alongside their normal job, and how you find time to fit that in, I think, is quite impressive. I know, Rob, we've had a conversation, and the amount of work that you do alongside is, I just don't know how you do it. And that's so common for so many people that I talk to. And just reflecting on Stuart's point in the chat there, is that it needs to be embedded in every policy. So it's everyone's job, not just the sustainability leads. Because what happens, I think, is that it often goes, oh no, that's not my job to think about sustainability. That's the eco leads or the sustainability leads. So then it just kind of gets pushed to the side. So I think it's so important for us to think about how we embed it across the curriculum, and not just in schools, but I just think in wider society as well. And I just like to reflect again. Doing a lot of reflecting on conversations I've had. On some conversations I've been having with Paul Edmund about, there's a lot of research into leadership, but also there's a lot of research into sustainable competencies for young people, and particularly in higher education. But what we've been trying to do is find research that is about sustainable leadership competencies for education leaders and what that might look like. But there is a real lack of research we're finding, and we just can't find anything that points to what it should look like in a school setting. Something that could maybe just help teachers to think, right, am I actually leading for sustainability across the education system, and what that looks like. So it's interesting that there is a lack of research. I don't know if that could change, or if anybody's working on it currently. So David, I don't know if you've got any reflections on that.
Yeah, I can mention that Professor Mike Bottery has done quite a lot of work on that at University of Hull over the last 20 years, really. And also, when I was doing my doctoral thesis, then I produced a model for leadership called Green Leader at that point. I wouldn't call it that now, but it was a model for leadership for sustainability. And that was on the back of interviewing head teachers from Green Flag Eco Schools to see if there are any commonalities in terms of their values and their backgrounds and their sort of modus operandi. And so that sort of thing is available. And WWF UK have also got quite a lot of research on that, dating back to the early 2000s up to the mid 2000s. So that might be worth a look, Rachel, because there's some good stuff there. And a lot of it has been forgotten. And a lot of it does revolve around what competencies and how values-led a lot of these people are, and the importance of having a moral compass that actually leads you to want to do this stuff, rather than other types of aims in education. So a lot of it can get down to individual values and individual philosophies about what education is, and it actually gets you to look at what the aims of education should be. And we haven't had a lot of discussion about that, I think, as leaders for quite a long time. That's also been on the back burner. It's been about sort of firefighting, So you might like to look those things up. It could be abuse, a blast from the past sort of thing.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I find it really useful to go and look at things from the past to see kind of where the benchmark was then, and see how we actually have moved forwards or not. So that's really useful. Thank you. And I think the values thing in education is certainly, I think, a discussion we could have, a whole hour-long discussion about values in education and what that means and what the long-term goal of in education is. I'm just acutely aware of the time. Does anyone have any kind of questions they want to ask, or any points they'd like to say before we start to wrap things up a little bit? Because we've only got 5 minutes left until 7:30. So maybe one longer question or two little questions if anybody would like to add something.
I'm just going to add something. I don't know. I know there's a couple of people from the Northeast up here. That just do it attitude can really get you a long way. I know it's Nike's strap line, which I hate, but it is just doing it. So I was really concerned that there's Oasis Northeast, which are a fantastic organisation up here with Rich Hurst. They run some events, but not that many. And I hadn't ever managed to get myself to one, but I was really aware that there weren't many environmental education events up here in the Northeast. So literally, I've just decided to do one, and Oasis Northeast are coming along, and the RHS local team. We have the local wildlife trust coming along, and we've now getting people from the university coming in. So, and it's for teachers. It's for teachers to come and network and talk to everybody and share their ideas. And I think, you know, we always say, oh, you go in and watch someone else's lesson, go and do this. We need these networks in climate sustainability education, just to be able to have these conversations about what's going on, where it's going on, what's good practice, you know, and because it's very, you know, it's regionally quite different in terms of different schools, from the smallest, you know, state funded primary school to the huge mats that we've got. Every school is different, but you know, there is a common theme that we definitely need to start really pushing now for climate sustainability education to really be embedded throughout in all school processes. If anybody wants to come to EcoEd Northeast, just drop me a line, because it's free.
Thank you, Matt.
David and me will be there.
Always nice to see
and
your
Rich,
faces.
and Rich Hurst.
I just want to pick up on the point as well that Joe's just put in the chat about she's a university lecturer and wants to get into teaching educators in education for sustainability. And I think sometimes, as well as looking forwards, we need to look kind of backwards a little bit as well, is actually what's in the teacher training. You know, we say it has to come from the senior leadership team, but is that too late if it's there? Do we need to start talking about this before they even become teachers as well? So there's so much to navigate.
This weekend on Saturday, all day, I'm at the regional NEU ECT conference, Early Career Teachers Conference, and I'm doing a whole workshop. I'm going to be there all day to chat to the young teachers about how serious this issue is, about what they can do about it, because over the next 10 years, that is going to be a huge part of their job. So definitely, and some PGC courses, ITT courses, are really putting sustainability at the heart of what they do now. So definitely, if you're going into teaching, if you're thinking about making that jump, do it. It's a fantastic career. But adding in the climate sustainability, you know, it makes it even more challenging in many ways. But young people need, you know, they need the leaders, you know, so we just have to stand up and be leaders and take that leap of faith.
Yeah, two teacher training universities that I've come across which do excellent work in this area, and they work with groups of schools as well. One's the University of Reading, and they've got a very innovative teacher training package, and also Canterbury Christchurch University down in Kent. They once again have just embedded it in their teacher training, but they're also permeating it into the groups of schools that they send their students out to for teaching practice. So I would definitely recommend those two to look up if you were looking for a place on a course.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that's really useful information for people to know. Unfortunately, we are going to have to start wrapping it up, because it is not 9:30, blimey, it is 7:30 now. So I wish we had longer for this conversation, because I think we're really getting into some nitty-gritty stuff, and it's really interesting to hear people's perspectives. But I'd like to say a massive thank you to Meryl and David for joining us and sharing their wisdom and practice. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again at some point. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight as well. Please keep an eye out for more talks and events that we will be offering across UKSSN, as well as Transform Our World, and sign up to our newsletters. I will share the recording if you would like to share with anyone that wasn't able to make it tonight. And thank you again. It has been great to see everyone, and hopefully see you at another event soon.